let's look at if-else statements. Now, if-else works to actually control the flow of your different statements and your processes. Now, if you just need an if condition, if you just need to test for something whether it's true or false, and then you want to do something, and you just need one line of code, then you can do if the expression x is greater than 1. If that's true, then we're going to execute this statement. If it's false, we're just going to go to the next line and follow through. And notice that we don't have to worry about the brackets if we don't want to. If it's one statement, you can put it on one line of code, makes things easier for you. If you want, you can also nest it like this. If that makes it easy, I recommend putting a space afterwards, of course, because that's going to make it look separate, because sometimes you can mess up your tab order here for your code preview. You can also put things on one line with brackets and then separate your statements if you wanted to. The basic thing is we're doing one test condition. We're checking for an expression to see if it's true or false. It can be a very complex expression. It doesn't have to be a complex expression. It can be very simple. Whatever it is, what it evaluates to is going to be what you're going to use. If you want to use an if-else statement, that's what we have here. If-else. So if this is true, okay, do that. But if it's not true, else, do that. So true, and this is going to evaluate to the false. So that's how that would work. We'll look at more of the testing conditions later as well. So it's very easy to get that started. Anything more complex, I recommend using nested ifs. And you can also work with switch statements, as we're going to see. Switch statements are great. So now we see another example of putting everything on one line here. If x, very simple. If x is true, then we're going to test for another condition. If y, then we're going to do x1. Else, we're going to do y1. So all on one line. You don't need the brackets. You see, because we're working with one statement, you could have the brackets if you wanted to. So all on one line. Here is how it would look broken out. If x, nested. And then we have another if-else nested in there. If y, do x1, else y1. And we can get rid of these brackets as well to make things easier on ourselves. You don't want to overdo it with the brackets. Now, I would leave this bracket here just to say, okay, this is what it does, because you can have long expressions, long statements, everything spreading out, and use the brackets to make things easier for you. Make your life easier. That way you know how things look, you know how the logic is working, you're not confused, you're not trying to be too cool, too tricky, because you're going to mess things up. Trust me, you're going to have an error, a bug, something, and then that's going to mess things up. Never know. These little things can be a real pain in the neck. Since we're working with this, I'm not even going to worry about it. But, you know, you can get lost in all of these nested brackets here. So whatever you're doing, I'm just ad hocing here. Whatever you're doing, when you're working with the brackets, you don't want to wind up with something like this. Because this is basically telling you that you need a bracket or you don't need a bracket. And then you have to go back and figure out where you need a bracket, cut and paste code out, figure out what you're doing. So make things simple on yourself. You don't want to spend 2 hours looking for something an hour. You don't even want to spend 10 minutes looking for a bug. I don't want to spend 1 minute, 30 seconds looking for a bug. If I could program and everything worked fine the first time, that is great. But for the most part, that's if-else. Very simple. We'll go over more details, and we'll use this throughout the training. Now that we've talked about it, we can just use it as we need to.